Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for OA Week 2025. My name is Carly LaRoche, and I'm a member of the GOA-ON Secretariat. We're going to be getting started in just a moment. Let a few more people join our session. Okay, I think we can get started. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm very excited to be introducing this session today for OA Week 2025. Again, my name is Carly LaRoche and I'm a member of the GOA-ON Secretariat. Please note that this session is being recorded. Before I provide a bit of an introduction to OA Week, I'd like to jumpstart our audience participation and invite your participation in a Mentimeter survey as people are trickling in. So you can use this QR code on our shared screen here. To answer the question, what comes to mind when you think about ocean acidification education? And we'll let that simmer for a couple of minutes before sharing out our results. So OA Week is presented by 4 sponsoring organizations. First, GOA-ON, the Global Ocean Acidification Observing Network. Second, NOAA, the United States National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And third, the IAEA OAICC, the International Atomic Energy Agency Ocean Acidification International Coordination Center. And last but not least, the IOC, the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commissions of the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. GOA-ON was established in 2012 with just a handful of members. Since then, GOA-ON has grown immensely. It now has over 1,200 members from over 110 countries. It also consists of 11 regional hubs, which span across continents and oceanographic regions. We'll be hearing from most of them throughout OA Week. OA Week debuted in 2020 and returned in 2021 when events and conferences were postponed due to COVID-19. Following the successful in-person symposium on the ocean in a high CO2 world in 2022, OA Week has become an annual event to maintain momentum around OA research and to provide a virtual platform for the ocean acidification community to exchange their latest findings. We are thrilled to present a wide range of ocean acidification topics and speakers from around the world during OA Week. A few words on housekeeping as we get started. During the presentation, all participants are in listen-only mode. You're welcome to type any questions into the question box, which can be found at the bottom of the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll be monitoring for incoming questions, and we'll pose them to our speakers during the question and answer section at the end of the session. For the discussion, you can use the raise hand function in the toolbox at the bottom of your screen, and we'll call on you to answer your question directly. Before we begin, I'd also like to express our sincere appreciation to Liz Perotti from NOAA's Ocean Acidification Program, who came up with the concept for this session and intended to be here as moderator. Unfortunately, she's unable to join us today, but I wanted to give her a shout out for not only all of the work she did to make this session a reality, but also all of the incredible work she does to support OA education and communications every day. And with that, I would like to introduce you to our moderator for this session. And that would be Molly Phillips. Molly is a final year PhD researcher from the University of Southampton. Her work involves the development and deployment of a novel autonomous total alkalinity sensor, a multidisciplinary mix of engineering and marine biogeochemistry. Molly is passionate about making marine research accessible to her community and has created courses and festival exhibits to engage the public with ocean science. And we're very happy to have Molly joining our OA Week team as one of our OA Week coordinators. All right, and with that, I will pass it off to you, Molly. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So to get us started, this is the word bubble that you've all created, the attendees. Complicated is a big word there, and I think we're about to learn even more how complicated it is today. But yeah, communication, awareness, and experiments. Hopefully we'll see a lot of that too. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for all the audience for tuning in around the globe. This session is Beyond Dissolving Shells, Innovative and Collaborative Ways to Improve OA Education session. We all know the classic outreach experiment of dissolving shells in vinegar to explain ocean acidification. So this session aims to give a snapshot of what is happening around the world in ocean acidification. And sharing examples of innovative approaches and better understanding the challenges and the needs for ocean acidification education. So after some short talks from our speakers, there'll be a panel Q&A and discussion, and we'll be coming back to this Mentimeter. If you've joined after we've shared the QR code, we'll be sharing it again a bit later. And then finally at the end, we'll be asking you to get involved in the Q&A, which you can put in the Q&A box. So we have a lot of speakers to get through today. So we will get started with, not with Amy. We've got a lot of speakers to get through today. So our first speaker is Jessie Turner. Jessie is the director of the International Alliance to Combat Ocean Acidification. Jessie establishes partnerships across a variety of disciplines and coalitions, deploys communication strategies across multiple scales, and supports members in the development of practicable ocean acidification adaptation and resilience strategies. Jessie, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, team. And I'm sorry, this is my screen now that is all messy. Yeah, thank you so much, Molly. Thank you so much, Carly. Thank you so much, GOA-ON and organizers for having us here. It is crazy to think this is the 5th OA week, and I'm so happy to see it ongoing. I feel like so many lessons learned from the pandemic about this being valuable and wanting to continue it. So it's great to see how much it has grown and continued in such a strong direction. I know we don't have so much time, so I'm going to be as quick as possible setting my little alarm. I am standing in today for our Creative Comms Director at the Ocean Acidification Alliance named Juliana Corrales. I say the word Creative Communications Director very specifically because she has really tried to take on this new direction in the OA Alliance, moving from just, some glossy policy briefs for government partners and making them beautiful and eye-catching to something much more with much more depth and much more thought behind how we're trying to communicate ocean acidification at the Alliance, and really in collaboration with all of you through these different channels like GOA-ON and OARS and a lot of different partners that we have at the Alliance. So I'm going to just quickly note the word complicated showing up in our word cloud. That is, par for the course. We all know how complicated it can be to communicate not just the nuances of the chemistry around ocean acidification or the drivers multiple of ocean and coastal acidification or the distinction between ocean and coastal acidification, and on and on and on. One of the things that Juliana has really tried to do with us at the Alliance is try to make it less complicated. And sometimes to do that, just really leaning into things that are a little bit more visual and a little bit more in the emotion sort of side of things. So we've come up with this great project called Art, and it's called Carbon in the Current, but it really started off with this relationship thinking about the role of art in communicating and helping us make some of these complicated nuances around ocean acidification a little bit less complicated, and really the challenge that we all know of making the unseen impact of carbon, the unseen phenomena of ocean acidification a little bit more visible and specifically felt in different ways through art. So again, Hula has this great creative communications program, really trying to underpin our science and policy work with these new creative projects. This is something that we've taken on only in the last maybe year and a half, and really trying to increase awareness and visibility of ocean acidification, but also generate that support for ambitious response that we're all after in our communications work. The objectives of our Creative Comms program is really to clearly communicate ocean acidification, but also to situate it and explain it within the context of climate change. We also want to make sure that we're not just explaining what is ocean acidification, but we're talking about how it affects people, both globally and locally. And then, of course, turning that OA knowledge into action. So this is the project that we've been working on for the last couple year, maybe year and a half. It's called Carbon in the Current, Contrasting Futures for Our Changing Ocean. And we decided to, the genesis of this project is really looking at these OA stripes. Many of you might be familiar with the ocean acidification stripes that were put out by ETH Zurich University in Switzerland by two researchers that were funded under this European Space Agency project called Ocean SODA. And they basically put together these pH stripes, this visual representation of acidification observations over the last 40 years in our global ocean and regional ocean basins. And so Hula had this great idea to say, this is beautiful, this is compelling. What if we put together a piece that brings people into these ocean acidification stripes and makes it a little bit more emotional and helps them see sort of how carbon is moving through the water current. So we went out and we partnered with a motion designer and 3D artist named Jacob Stillman, and we started putting together this piece. I'll go ahead and play it. I think we've got just enough time. Actually, maybe I won't. I guess what I would say, let's see. Oh, that's too bad. I'll just say, I'm not going to play it for time. I'm going to put in the chat sort of this 3D digital animation piece that you all can take a look at. And I think what we were able to do is showcase this at the UN Ocean Conference that occurred just last couple months ago in June in Nice. We were able to put it up at a little art gallery and have people come and take a look at it. You can see here pictures of the beautiful animation on the wall. And I think what our next steps are, this was really a try on to see how it sat with people. Just putting it together was sort of a challenge on its own. We had a lot of feedback and consultation, both with the creators of these ocean acidification stripes at ETH Zurich. We also had a lot of we're trying to collect a lot of feedback from our science community, but also our non-science community to help them or to help solicit how this sits with them, how they're understanding our representation of these changes in pH across and how that impacts different species. We were able to show different species in this video, like oysters. You can kind of see there on the bottom right. We have pteropods. You can kind of see them on the bottom left, coral, and really trying to show how these color changes impact those species. So our next steps are going to be to take in that feedback that we've been soliciting from our science and non-science partners and be ready to hit the ground running with this digital piece in 2026. We'll probably make some small changes. And then our job is really to think about how we can show this, not just at events like the UN Ocean Conference, but at art galleries and museums and aquaria, and really trying to think about different ways that we're reaching audiences in sort of non-traditional places, at least for us in the ocean acidification comms community. So I'll put in the chat a long link to the project. You can watch the video. It's about 1.5 minutes, and you can see this beautiful story map that was put together to really wrap around the digital piece and describe it in more detail. For people that want to deep dive into science, they can go find that. But for those that would rather just look at this visual piece and our big call to action at the end, which is we have a choice. We have a choice about how much carbon we're putting in our ocean, and that's the really big takeaway from this beautiful piece. So I'll pause there because I know we're tight, but thank you so much, Carly and Molly, and I'll put in the chat all the information to go find this so you can watch it on your own time.
Thank you so much, Jessie. It's really cool that we're going to see so many different types of education. So obviously you're meeting with the public there, but now we're going to hear from Amy Kenworthy. So Amy is a science communicator at Plymouth Marine Laboratory on the Probleu project, a European project promoting ocean and water literacy in schools, for which she creates science stories. Many of you may know Amy from when she was the Programme Officer of the Ocean Acidification Research for Sustainability Programme and focal point of OAR's Working Group 6 on public awareness. So Amy, when you're ready, you can get started. Okay, so I'll find out where Amy is, but Alex, are you around?
Sorry, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm here.
Amy's
Sorry,
there.
I just couldn't figure out where. Yeah, it wasn't showing how to unmute myself. There we go.
No
Hello,
worries.
everyone. Sorry about that. Thank you for the introduction and for inviting me to speak today. It's really lovely to be here. So yeah, I work on the Probleu project. I'm hired by Plymouth Marine Laboratory, and the Probleu project is dedicated to encouraging more schools to take the lead in teaching children about protecting the ocean and freshwater environments. And today I'll talk about how I designed a resource for schools to make OA hopefully more relevant and engaging. And I say hopefully because it is complicated, as we already have discussed. How can I go on? It's not letting me move the slide. Sorry. There we go. Yeah, so Probleu has a catalogue of teaching aids, and the online catalogue allows you to upload and download resources for free. So they're for educators around the world, but is a European project originally. And PML's role in this is to create science stories, which take students on a journey to learn about topics or research areas that PML works on. So we identified a few, namely being biodiversity and water chemistry. We've already made those, already made a modeling one. And then at the moment, I'm working on a plastic pollution and a climate change science story. And the water chemistry is the one that I'll be talking about today. Science stories all include slides, activities, and videos. So you can see some screenshots here from the water chemistry one. The top one is just a slide, then there's a screenshot of video, and then one of the activities, an ocean acidification puzzle. And all of the science stories have been designed to be linked to the school curricula and to be age appropriate. What I should say here is every country, sometimes within countries, the curriculum is different. So it's tried to find topics that will be touched on by most schools and try and find links there to get the ocean more into that. What students gain from it is they see how diverse marine science jobs and scientists are, hopefully helping them to be able to maybe see themselves in this career or see themselves in how they can contribute to positive change in these areas. It also helps put science in context. I think for a lot of students, or I know for a lot of students, science can be quite abstract. Why am I learning this? How does this relate at all to my life? So connecting it to global challenges and fitting them in there. And then also there's a variety of different learning styles that are used in the science stories to make it more fun and hands-on learning. So before I started designing science stories, I actually did my master's thesis on the topic. So I looked at what barriers there are to teaching ocean literacy and what these barriers are and how they can be addressed. And I looked at how videos might be able to help overcome some of those barriers. So part of that research was a literature review. So 3 different areas that I looked at: ocean literacy in the UK and beyond. And on the right here, you can see the different ocean literacy dimensions that are explored by McKinley et al. There were a few added a couple of years ago. Yeah, so really found there that ocean literacy is increasingly recognized as essential for young people to make informed and sustainable decisions to protect the marine environment. However, it's not being prioritized in the national curriculum, at least in the UK, but in many countries around the world. And so it really relies on teachers' personal initiative at the moment. Then also looked at videos and how they can be useful and how they need to be designed. And there I found that teachers do use videos to make complex topics more engaging and accessible, but not all videos actually achieve effective learning. And there's, for example, often cases of cognitive overload. So yeah, looking at what needs to be considered when designing these. I also did 10 interviews with teachers, wanted to do more, but it's quite hard to find time. Teachers are very busy, which is reflected as well in the key barriers that were identified for teachers to teach ocean literacy, one being lack of curriculum time and lack of the topic being in the curriculum. Limited teacher knowledge of ocean related topics. Many of them said, I don't know much myself, and so I don't know how to teach it. Low student interest, and then difficulty finding relevant and high quality resources. And so as an add-on to my thesis, I developed a guide for ocean literacy videos for UK secondary schools, although it can be used really for any for science communicators to be thinking about how do I need to be designing my video to make it really useful for teachers to talk about the ocean. So yes, so I'll talk a bit about the source to sea, how can farming impact water chemistry, science story, which is where the ocean acidification topic fits in, and why I designed it the way I designed it. So I wanted it to link to subjects and topics in the curriculum, and so it's designed for secondary schools because chemistry and biology are subjects that most students will learn. So for example, students learn about chemical reactions, about chemicals in the environment. In the UK curriculum, they'll learn about water pollution in biology and geography. And I wanted to make it relevant and tangible to the students. So why should they care about ocean acidification and how does it connect to their lives? And so obviously, by linking the causes of ocean acidification, for example, excess CO2 and eutrophication, or like coastal acidification, to something in their everyday lives, namely food production, it really gives them agency and shows them where they fit into the picture. So trying to make it relevant to them. So the journey that they go on is they get some background information about the nutrient and carbon cycle through some animations, which are focused on the carbon and nutrient cycle. Mostly we're focused on in the ocean. Then there's a video looking at how does farming pollute waterways. So in the video, I visit a regenerative farmer who is working with scientists from Plymouth Marine Laboratory on reducing his agricultural runoff, which can cause coastal eutrophication. I then go on to visit them downstream and look at what samples are scientists taking to understand the topic. And then there's a deep dive into ocean acidification because farming is a very carbon intensive, has a lot of carbon emissions. And so I speak to a PhD student, Liliana Stokes, about her research, and she shows, how she takes samples, what she does with them in the lab, and then what she hopes to achieve with them, so how she works with policy. And there's slides that sort of accompany that to talk students through the chemical reaction. And then, as I mentioned earlier, this puzzle to put that into sort of more hands-on learning. And then finally, there's an activity for stakeholder solutions for water pollution, where based on what they've learned from the different people, so from the scientist, from the farmer, they'll take the role of someone from government and they have discussion around how can they all work together to reduce pollution from farming, whether that's CO2 emissions or agricultural runoff, to help reduce the impact on water chemistry. So my key takeaways, I would say, is know your audience and really try and know your audience. So more than just say, okay, so I'm going to do it for secondary schools. speak to teachers, understand what drives them, what do they need, what are their barriers. Also research your methods. It's really lovely. Sometimes it's great to just be creative, but if we are trying to achieve something, there is a lot of knowledge out there on what does, what doesn't work. So making sure that your resources are well informed and are researched. Bear in mind, teachers are not marine science experts. They're busy and the curriculum is full. So connect OA to something that they'll be teaching anyway, so that they can just easily fit it in. And then make sure that it relates to students' everyday lives. So try and make connections so that in their social context as well, so that they really feel like they have a sense of agency, that they can do something about it. Yeah, sorry, I know we don't have much time, so I'll wrap up there, but I'm very happy to yeah, get any emails. I'd be happy to share my thesis or just chat about the resources and the catalogue in general, and that QR code will link you to the catalogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Those are some really, really great points. And I can see that some people are using the Q&A. So if you would like to ask any questions, if the audience would like to ask any questions, you can put your questions in now and then we'll come to them when it's time for the Q&A later in the session. So don't hold on to them, you can put them all in that Q&A box. So our next speaker is Alex Zimmerman from Indiana University. Alex's interdisciplinary research and teaching from elementary to undergraduate levels has focused on both ancient conservation paleobiology and modern marine conservation. He currently works as a grant development specialist, helping a wide range of teams develop funding proposals. Off you go, Alex.
Thank you, and appreciate the invitation as well. It's great to meet everybody and talk with everybody here. My talk today is just on the open source educational game I developed as part of a NOAA grant, and it's called Ocean Protector. And just today I'm going to share some lessons I learned from it, along with just give a rundown of the tool and the links that hopefully can you might find useful. So to start out with the broader connections, the motivation I had for developing this game-based learning method for helping teach about ocean acidification is that, as folks before during this session have mentioned, it's just increasing the amount of tools that educators can use and the variability in multimedia that can be employed to help students from all areas learn about ocean acidification. So not only on the coast, but also inland as well. And games are a really great way to do that because they can foster self-directed learning. In this specific case, self-directed ocean acidification learning. So students can make active decisions in the game driven by their own knowledge, see the real-time outcomes, and then do that iteratively throughout the game and hopefully build some knowledge and be able to do this as much as they want because it's a low cost and free replay option. So ideally with this ocean acidification game that was released a few years ago now, our ultimate goals were to help expand ocean literacy and provide additional tools for both educators and for students, especially with students from inland communities that may just not have much experience with ocean acidification or ocean literacy in general. And ideally, game-based learning with the visuals and feedback are a fast hook for students to hook into that. And again, this is just another tool in the toolbox that can be used. There's lots of great talks today talking about all these kind of different methods that can all be employed together. So it's great to see all of those resources come together. And particularly this tool, like many others here, it's easy to deploy with anywhere with an internet connection. And again, our goal is to really not only have people on the coast use it, but everybody inland. I'm at Indiana University in the United States, which is pretty much in the center of the continent practically, so pretty far away from any oceans. And this was developed with feedback from inland educators as well. One of the lessons learned, I guess, and recommendations that I'll quickly go over are both maximizing the interactivity for students, but minimizing how fast they can go through it, while also making sure it runs on the equipment that students have. So for maximum interactivity, students can explore the scene, they can click on things, they can get direct, immediate feedback, real-time impacts in the game. The decisions they make in the game affect the marine scene they're running. I'll show examples of the game on the second half of this lightning talk. But another goal with any kind of click and game and things like that, students, especially those who have grown up in the digital space, really know how to fine tune and get through clicking things really, really quickly. So with the design implementation in mind, we want to kind of minimize that speed running. So we wanted students to actually be able to click on lots of things, but that clicking allows them to measure data and look at multiple points of examination within the scene and look at multiple animal groups and different effects and things like that. At the same time, though, like most educators, the students are using laptops or tablets that are widely distributed, and thus the programs on them need to be tuned for performance. So it has to load really quick on the web, and especially in the US here where I'm at, they have to be optimized for Chromebooks because that's a lot of what the students are using, and Chromebooks are maybe infamous for not being the fastest laptop around. So with these considerations in mind, making sure it's engaging for the students and it slows them down and makes them think while also being really easy for the educators to use. And to expand on that, all of this was developed iteratively with communications with educators and developing back and forth throughout the entire design process. So the core gameplay of this game was designed for a single 50-minute class period with options to expand it. So it could be just a closed one-off session, but there's options for educators to use where they have autosave features. You can talk about content beforehand, do the activity, and then talk about content afterwards as well. And it's developed for grades 6 through 8 in the United States, but higher grades can still utilize. I've even had some 100-level college professors say it was a nice little activity to refresh people and talk about and lead to larger things. So it is adaptable in that degree, and it's linked directly with additional NOAA content. So, for example, the species that are affected by ocean acidification that NOAA has listed on their website were directly pulled into the game with these kind of adaptations. So the visuals here hopefully get across that there are similarities there. And in the game as well, it has links where people can click on the species itself and later go to the NOAA links as well. And overall, our goal for this was to have it be student-driven. So they're making the decisions that affect this interactive ocean scene that they're looking at. And they can collect data and they can see how these decisions they're making are affecting this space through time. And while at the same time, we want to leverage the strengths that gaming-related education can provide. So that's providing really dynamic and adaptive visuals. So it's not a static image. There are animations, but the entire thing has fish and animals and water and algae and pollutants and boats and things like that moving through the screen adaptively to how their decisions are driving the entire game. And of course, at the core of this, we still want that educational content. So combining what is going on with the science, what has NOAA put on their website that we can link into, what are other resources we can also link into, and structuring all of this in a scaffolded way. So we start with that basic knowledge and then build up to synthesis and evaluation. And this is kind of the big kind of complex network graph. Again, for a longer talk, I might go over this a little more in depth, but the overall process is that students first get a little intro to the ocean acidification science with some animations and some questions and a little quiz within the game. And then once they pass that, then they get to choose a character and then work through the game making decisions for that character. So with each decision, they'll see the immediate outcome and feedback and then get recommendations along with how the character's progressing, along with ocean acidification impacts. And they do that a few times iteratively with the questions building and building to more complexity. And then finally, at the end, they get their overall ocean acidification impact results, a summary of what they did, and then recommendations so they could do the entire process over again. They can either choose the same character or a different character and go through all of that again as often as they may want to. And of course, underpinned by all of this is the NOAA data and models for ocean acidification, other ocean acidification literature, And here in the United States, there's also integration with national science standards. So I'll just take a really quick example. I'll just do screenshots, but I'll drop links in the chat as soon as I'm done. So the students, they boot up the web page. Within a few seconds, this will load, and it just introduces them to this ocean scene where there's coral and there's fish and boats moving by and other animals, crustaceans and things like that. And it just has them start clicking the scene and documenting what ocean life is around. Then it gives them new information just through some pop-ups and then some quizzes with extra animations just about the basics of ocean acidification. Now, ideally, educators can pre-prep this material with lessons beforehand, but it is technically all condensed into this single 50-minute lesson just to allow educators to quickly pop this into a session and not have to do ideally too much prep if they are unable to or have other time constraints. Like we've talked about in other sessions today, it's complicated and educators are already super busy, so allowing them to have something to drop in really quickly can be very useful. So anyway, students go through this quiz, they get to choose their character, and then they're given decisions that their character will make. So the game prompts them with multiple questions, and each of these questions has options that the students can click, and upon clicking an option and using their knowledge and understanding that they're gaining throughout playing this game, they'll see the direct immediate impacts on coral and the fish and the other crustaceans and other animals and even the plankton and their character. And at each stage, they'll then remeasure data for all of these objects in the scene and get this time series data along with this summary data of how things are progressing and what the status of their decisions on all of these groups are. And at the very end, after doing this layered cascading of decisions, they'll get those recommendations, like I mentioned, of, okay, this is what you did. This is the ultimate outcome that we've hit so far. This is what might happen in the future. And these are some extra recommendations if you want to do this again. And as a key, here are recommendations that you can also implement in your everyday real world actions. So they can see things like time series throughout each decision, how things changed, and at the end, get those recommendations. And again, this can all be part of a larger think, pair, share discussion, a group review, going to NOAA's site for more information, and key, talking about actions in our own lives, and hopefully connecting them with what they're thinking about, especially in inland communities where ocean literacy is not as high of a priority as on the coasts commonly. So that's the kind of experience for the students, but for educators, we also wanted to make sure this was readily available with lots of additional resources. So as a part of developing this game, we also put together lots of educator materials with an educator's guide, PDF that showed specific science standards that can link into this lesson, along with an example of integrating this into US-based education modules. Also, we have an anonymous Google Sheet that shows the analytics for each question along with the summary that each student provides. So at the start of the game, they can type in a 4-digit number if they want to save their scores, or if the teacher wants them be able to see their scores. And that allows teachers to use the data, but also us as researchers can go onto that anonymous Google Sheet site and see all of the people that have been playing it, when they played it, what scores they've got, how many times they've repeated it, things like that. And like I mentioned in the title, this is a completely open source project. All the assets were created for this grant, and the code is available on GitHub. And all of these links are available on the website, which I will also drop into the chat. And I'll quickly just end here with some feedback from educators that students really enjoy being able to pick their own choices and see how things reacted. Educators were happy that it worked on Chromebooks really quickly and was optimized for this speed, and that it is a nice lesson to be able to incorporate. And again, this is just another tool in the wide set of tool we're talking about today. So it's great to be here, and I'm happy to answer questions at the very end here because I think we're on a tight schedule. So thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you so much, Alex. That's so interesting as well about the minimizing speed running. That was such a funny thing to hear at the beginning. So thank you very much to our first three speakers. We're gonna break it up a little bit, and if you want to stretch your legs, then please do. We're going to head back to the Mentimeter, so I shall share the Mentimeter screen. If you want to head over, we have a different question now. This question is, what education have you been involved in? You can select multiple options. We've already seen from our three speakers completely different methods of communicating ocean acidification. And we wanted to get an idea of what our audience was already involved in. And again, if you do have any questions for our speakers, then put them in that Q&A box, and we'll get around to answering them at the end of the session. So I shall give you like 1 or 2 minutes. In fact, shall we go directly over to the Mentimeter screen? What's going on over here? Okay. So we've got a film and TV, lots of festivals. Social media, I can imagine, is a nice popular one. And all these others, if people want to chat about what your other type of education is, we'll definitely get around to that at the end of this session. I can see a lot. Ooh, more than one games. So it's not just Alex working on games. And hopefully those people who are involved in games have got something useful from Alex's talk there. I'll give this a little bit more time, but I think almost everyone has answered. Really interesting to see that there's quite a heavy weighting towards social media, which I think a lot of us are relying on. We're tweeting this week everything that's going on, so that's how we're communicating. And maybe you've seen our LinkedIn posts as well. Amazing. I will keep this one open during our next speaker. I'll move on to them now. So I'll just make sure that I'm sharing our next speaker's slide. So our next speaker is Sam Dupont. He is from the University of Gothenburg and Ocean Acidification International Coordination Center, where he works as a biologist with more than 15 years' experience studying the impact of ocean acidification on marine species and ecosystems. He is developing, implementing, and evaluating novel communication activities aiming at driving actions to minimize and address ocean acidification. So Sam, when you're ready to share your screen, go for it.
I am ready. Let's hope. All right. So thank you very much for the opportunity today. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach. I would say I wanted to talk a little bit more about what you have to think about in terms of psychology and so on when you do these kind of activities. And I can start with a little bit of a provocative kind of question. It's like, how are we doing as a scientific community? Because we want to communicate science, but how are we doing? And actually, we can say that we are doing great. We have GOA-ON, we have ORS, we have the OAICC, we have acidification highlighted in the SDG framework, more than 11,000 publications. So acidification is quite visible and quite successful in terms of generating information. But then when it comes into, are we really making a difference, which is why we want to communicate, the answer is maybe not as clear. Like we can see that CO2 keeps going up, pH keeps going down. And there were like this publication a couple of years ago saying that if we keep at the rate we are doing now, we have basically 6 years at the time, so it's 4 years now, before failing completely in reaching the target of the Paris Agreement. So we know it's happening, we know it's having a lot of visible effect, but it's not really driving the change we need. And that's something that scientists in a way are also promoting. We always want more research, and it was a Nature publication recently saying more research is needed. And when you say that, the real persons who are responsible for climate change, which are the big industries, they love that because it's delaying action. So take your time, collect more information. That's what, and in the meantime, we will keep producing carbon dioxide as we do. So another thing that you can learn from social science is that information, unfortunately, is a really poor driver of change. So it's not because you know more about the topic that necessarily you're going to take the action that are needed. And even worse, sometimes it's creating more polarization. So you're just going to reinforce your view based on what you've learned. So we have to be really careful when we say, okay, we want to communicate more. That's important, but we have to think about how to do that in a way that is really driving action. So just to quote Tim Minchin's, sure, there is a failure to communicate here, but maybe it's not necessarily about the amount of information or what we communicate, but really how we do it. And the main issue we are facing today is that we are overwhelmed by information. We have all kinds of information about everything, but most of the time people don't care because you have this disconnection between human and nature. So we can think we are on the side of nature, or we are even worse, on top of nature. And the first step, I would say, if you really want to communicate and drive reaction, is having a little bit of a humility perspective, saying, okay, we are just one tiny species in this huge diversity of life, and we are part of it. We are not just like a super species. We are just one species in a complex ecosystem. Sure, we have a disproportionate impact on many things, but if we really want to solve that, we have to reconnect with nature. There are actually some really cool framework out there telling you that, okay, if you really want to change the world, if we want to go towards sustainability, we need to reconnect and reconnect at different levels, from first realizing how important the ocean is for us. That will be kind of the more shallow way of connecting with nature, to a more like emotional and philosophical way of doing this. And emotion is really the key here. If you want to reconnect, we have to communicate things in a way that is going to drive true emotion. But unfortunately, most of the scientific communication we do is the opposite. We tend to communicate really dry things or boring things. And the science that is actually done is really poorly designed for communication. Most of the science that is done is on things that nobody cares about, and it's very complicated, where if you really want to drive change, you have to communicate about simple things that people care about. And we wanted to test this framework, and that's always the story I tell, but we tried that in many different ways by first listening to people that say, okay, what do you care about in the ocean? And you can have different answers depending on where you are. But one of the more classic answer you have is food. And I really believe that if you have a physical connection with an issue, that creates an emotional connection that will make you more willing to actually change. And I really believe that food is a great way of doing that. And if you check the Chef's Table on Netflix, on the first episode, we have Massimo Bottura talking about how he made a recipe to basically rescue a disaster in a society. And actually, you can actually change the world with food. And that's basically what we did in a nutshell. We first made research that were completely targeted toward communication. So we decided to study one of the most iconic seafood in Sweden, where I work. It was the northern shrimp, and realized that acidification can influence the taste. And by doing that, we could set up communication activities to basically take advantage of this physical experience. You can actually taste ocean acidification to make people care. And so that's basically the paper, if you're interested to see how we did it. But basically, you can physically experience a difference when you expose shrimp to ocean acidification. And this has multiple strengths. One is that you can reach an audience that doesn't care. A lot of the communication activities are done in places where you're going to reach an audience that is half convinced. But if you go, for example, in a shopping mall or in a public event that is completely unrelated to science, you can actually trick people to come to you through seafood tasting, and then make them physically realize that CO2 emissions are actually impacting something they care about. And recently, we teamed up with social scientists to really try to see what's happening in the brain of people that are actually taking this activity, and realize that it is, if you have a physical experience, if you're physically experiencing ocean acidification, it's increasing your emotional connection and increase your willingness to change. So that's something to think about whenever you design your activity. Try to think, how can I ensure and test and evaluate the fact that my communication is not only increase the knowledge, but increase the emotional connection with the issue and the willingness to change. And I just want to finish this really short presentation by having a little bit of feedback from you guys, because I've been doing this for a while. We tried games, we tried virtual reality, we tried physical experience and so on. And at the end of the day, if you do your job right, if you actually put the effort, you're going to have people telling you, okay, I'm convinced, what shall I do now? And we have this naive idea that every step counts. And something that has been done quite a lot is putting the responsibility on individuals. What can you do as a person to solve acidification? And something that I used to do is basically give access to well-designed carbon footprint calculators. You could see what you could do in your everyday life to decrease your carbon footprint. But sometimes what you suggest is actually something that does not make a real difference. Putting the responsibility on individuals is, again, what the big companies always try to do. Carbon footprint calculator has been invented by the oil companies. So you don't really see where the problem really is. So if you really want to reduce carbon dioxide emission, that's not going to happen by changing individual footprint. It's going to require some much more drastic changes in the structure of society. And the question is like, okay, how do we do that? And okay, so, okay, maybe I want to influence policy. That's also something I used to say, let's vote for the right people. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of blue washing in that space. There was this paper published last year, I think, showing that out of 1,500 policies that have been implemented to try to fix climate change, only 63 of them had actually a real effect. There's a lot of blue washing and so on, and I'm not even going to go there, but be careful when you talk about blue economy, nature-based solution, and so on and so on. So my real question for you is, what shall we recommend once we reach our audience? And if I want to summarize what I said, communication is an important tool, and we can definitely improve science by being more communication relevant. So basically think about like what kind of data you collect to be sure that the things you communicate drives an emotional connection. Definitely scientists can learn a lot about how to communicate better. But if you do that right, you can definitely increase engagement through emotion. But then what do we really need to change? I don't believe personally that putting the responsibility on the individual is the right way to go. There must be something else. We have to be careful about what we recommend in terms of like blue washing and so on and so on. So I don't really necessarily have an answer there. I have opinions. But that would be super interesting if you can share maybe in the chat what you think are good recommendation when we reached our target. And I think that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sam. Yeah, if anyone would like to put forward what they think. Jessie, you have your hand up. Go for it.
No, I was searching for clapping hands, that's all.
Oh. If any of our audience would like to answer Sam's questions there, then you can put that in the Q&A box and we can all have a look at them. We will continue on with speakers for now, but I think absolutely keep Sam's questions in mind as we hear from the rest of our speakers. So who do we have next? I'm going to share my screen. Oop. There we go. Oh, we've got Francesca. So our next speaker is Francesca Santoro. Francesca is the Senior Program Officer at the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, where she leads the organization's global efforts in ocean literacy. She coordinates the Ocean Literacy with All initiative under the UN Ocean Decade, promoting the integration of ocean knowledge into education, policy, and public engagement. With a background in marine environmental science and governance, she works across sectors, educators, scientists, artists, and decision makers to bridge the gap between ocean science and societal awareness. So Francesca, when you're ready, I'm excited to hear this.
Thank you so much, Molly. It's really a great pleasure to have the chance to talk with you and with quite numerous, I would say, attendees of this webinar. Thanks for the invitation, and it's been really great to hear our previous presentations. Really interesting insights, quite diverse as well. So thanks and congrats for the program so far. So I'm gonna share my screen. So I think somehow my presentation will continue along the lines that Sam started. So it is more a reflection on how we can bridge science, policy, and society rather than talking about specific tools. Although, of course, I'm more than happy to respond to question afterwards, although I will also speak about one special initiative, but just to illustrate what I would like to say in terms of what actually is ocean literacy, because I believe there are also some misconceptions out there. So I hope that through my presentation, I will be able to clear some of these misconceptions about what ocean literacy really is. Every time I give a presentation on ocean literacy, I cannot help but avoiding or by sharing this quote by Sylvia Earle, because I think it's really it was really, of course, Sylvia Earle is an inspiration for all of us, but this sentence is really what guides my work, my everyday work. So as you can read, Sylvia Earle said that far and away the greatest threat to the ocean and thus to ourselves is ignorance. But we can do something about that. And that's actually what ocean literacy is for me. It's really a way to bridge this gap, as we said, or as it is said in the title of my presentation, bridging gaps between science, society, and policy. And it's very interesting, and partially was said in one of the presentation that ocean literacy concept is evolving quite a lot. It started in the US exactly 20 years ago as a way to introduce more ocean or marine science content and topics into formal education settings. And historically, it has been described as the understanding of the ocean influence on us and our influence on the ocean. Today, as I briefly mentioned already, is evolving as a goal for the society as a whole. We want the society to become more ocean literate. And we want the society to become more ocean literate, not simply because we want them to know more about the ocean, but we want to maybe empower everyone to take action. I really like, and again, this is one of the other quotes I make every time I give a presentation on ocean literacy. What recently in just maybe a few weeks before the third UN Ocean Conference, Peter Thomson wrote in an interview, and I think this is really grasp what I personally mean for ocean literacy. And Peter Thomson said that, or wrote, that ocean literacy is the compass guiding us towards a sustainable future. It empowers us to understand the stakes, connect the dots, and take meaningful action. This is not just a matter of environmental stewardship, but one of intergenerational justice. In particular, what is really important for me in this quote is when Peter said that ocean literacy helps us connecting the dots. I think that's one of the most difficult thing that we one of the most difficult, or one of the biggest challenges that we encounter when we want to develop ocean literacy initiative and or when we want to develop ocean literacy resources. For people, it's really, really, really complicated to connect the dots and have an holistic approach, but that's simply because of how our educational systems are made and traditionally how different topics are taught. We still live in an education made of disciplines, while I strongly believe that is really important, especially when we talk about complex topics like ocean acidification or many other environmental issues topic. The only way is to really make sure that we adopt not even an interdisciplinary approach, I would rather say a transdisciplinary approach. So exactly, the science is clear, although as Sam said, scientists are always looking for more science, and rightfully so, and advocating for more support to science. And I'm not here to say that this is not right, on the contrary, but we need to try to understand why, although the science is strong, awareness remains lost and that's because there is a big gap in how we translate the information in a way that can reach everybody. In this image, you can see one of our installations. It was developed in the context of an exhibition, a traveling exhibition, which is called Ocean and Climate Village, that we have brought already in several areas, several locations of the world. And the initial driver for the development of this installation was that I wanted to make ocean literacy more inclusive, and in particular develop ocean literacy resources or installations for people with disability. So as you can see, the title of this installation is Feel the Change, and in particular it was developed for blind people. So the idea was that we would put 3D printed examples of marine species affected by climate change and ocean acidification. And in this way, people will feel the change. So in a very concrete manner, instead of explaining what ocean acidification is with 1,000 words, we would really help driving those emotions that were mentioned before, and doing that also in collaboration with different types of experts. So this installation was developed with digital designers, with artists, and with scientists, of course. And that goes back to what I was saying, the need of developing ocean literacy initiative or ocean literacy resources with a transdisciplinary approach. This is exactly what we try to do in the first part of 2025, when we started to think about developing an ocean literacy center in Venice, which was officially launched in April, early April 2025. This ocean literacy center is located on an island in the Venice Lagoon. And of course is open to all visitors, and taking this opportunity to invite you all to come to Venice to see the center. It was a truly challenging exercise, because we, in order to develop the center, we had to work with architects, designers, data visualization experts, educators, pedagogists, game developers. So it was really challenging. But one of the most challenging things was to start discussing with designers and architects and make them understand that we wanted to create a space for learning. Not a beautiful installation, not a fancy place, although as you can see from some pictures, in the end, we succeeded in making it quite fancy, I would say. But most of all, using the space or making the space capable of helping people to learn, but not only to learn, as I said before, but giving people the tools to act upon this knowledge. So these are the 4 phases that we used. First of all, as I said, we put around the table experts coming from a lot of different backgrounds. Scientists, as I said, designers, architects, digital installation experts, data visualization experts, and we try to co-develop this space. then we work on how to translate ocean data and ocean information into tools that could help people to learn. And then we started to test these tools or these installations with different type of audiences, from kids to citizens to people with already a quite relevant background, to decide then to scale up what we developed in the center. So one of the main elements of the center are those tables, the one that I showed before and this one, in which we are basically using data, ocean data, to inspire dialogues and discussions. So our idea is to use ocean data to inspire discussions, as I said, and to create, as it was said before, agency, so that we could really empower people to act upon the knowledge that they were learning in the center. So ocean literacy overall, for me, is a way to transform awareness into action. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Raj. I love that, awareness into action. That's why everyone's here on this call today, right? Is to make stuff happen. Thank you so much for that. So we only have 2 speakers left. Our next speaker is Paula Diaz from IO Caribe UNESCO. Paula is a Honduran marine biologist with a background in coastal management and marine ecology. She's currently the coordinator of the Ocean Literacy Program, leading the establishment of blue schools across the Caribbean region. I'm looking forward to this one, Paula.
Hi, good morning here. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see it? Yes. Okay, perfect. Oh, wait. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Paola Diaz, and as Molly mentioned, I'm currently the regional coordinator of ocean literacy by IO Caribe UNESCO. Right now, the IO Caribe have different, the Office of IO Caribe have different programs. IO Caribe is the submission of the Intergovernmental Oceanic Commission for the Caribbean and adjacent regions, and also promotes cooperation in ocean science data management and capacity development, and contributes to the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. For right now, we have 45 member states in the region, and these, as you can see here, are the different programs. In that case, for my representation is with the Ocean Literacy Program. But this program start in the IO Caribe region this year, and one of the main activities and main goals for this program is the Blue Schools Program. So there's the Blue School Global Network, and they currently have two regional networks. That is the European Blue Schools Network and the Caribbean Blue Schools Network. But we are happy to tell you that for this year, the Blue Schools Global Network start to organizing new regional coordination, because these networks, regional networks, it really helps to move forward. As you know, the regions have different challenges, different characteristics. So I'm going to talk to you about the Caribbean network and what is happening now. One of the main goals for this network is to strengthening ocean literacy, engage school communities in the deep understanding and appreciation of the oceans. The goal too is curriculum integration, integrate ocean literacy into a school curriculum through strategic partnerships. And the goal 3 is educator coordinator training, provide the necessary resources and support to implement ocean-focused education. These goals are in general for the global network, but as regional network, we we are working these platforms in different ways. In the way we are adapting these different goals to the region, but not to lose like the core of the program. So we're happy to see that, to tell you that even if we start this year, we already have 13 active coordinators for Blue Schools. These are the blue dots where we already have coordinators. That doesn't mean that the rest of the countries don't have Blue Schools. Is that these represented the people that are already working with the EO-Caribe UNESCO network. So one of my roles is actually to start to make a regional assessment of the ocean literacy and Blue Schools program around the region, and try to connect with these different programs to give them support, to give them training to the coordinators, and help them to establish the programs in their countries. So until now, with these 13 active coordinators, we already developed two trainings. The coordinators are prepared for GIB certification in their countries. And actually, we are really active network right now. Like there's a lot of things moving on these years with this network. So for that reason, we don't have, until now, we don't have, or they don't have established like a real program there connected with ocean acidification. This is the year that they are organizing, that they are establishing the Blue Schools, that we establish the documents for the region. And so they are working on the network for this year. But at the same time, they are working like a lot with different programs. So we can see here in this publication that there are a lot of activity happening with science, with science communication, with citizen science, that they are already organizing with the different local organizations and governmental organizations in their country. So, but at the same time, we are encouraging the coordinators that to establish the other programs that EO-Caribe have, and one of those programs is ocean acidification into their curriculums. So I see that through Blue Schools Network, it can be a platform to connect with this topic that is a real things happening in the world. And as you know, even in superior level, there's still a lot of things understanding about ocean acidification, about how interact with the different sorry, I lost the word, the different dynamics in the ocean. So it's really important to start to looking for strategical ways to implement this topic in the curriculum, and kids and students in general to know more about this topic. So for example, how changes in the ocean affect local fisheries, which is one of the main activities in the Caribbean region, the coastal line, or food security. So in general, the coordinators have different roles. The first one is for defining the Blue Schools national objectives, to establishing and maintaining the national network of Blue Schools, organizing training sessions for teachers, distributing the resources and support member schools, reporting progress and challenges to the Blue School, which is connected also with building a partner network. So we as EO-Caribe are helping them to also build a partner network, because with all these responsibilities, there's also a lot of challenges. So implementing the programs requires materials and also funding. So so we are trying to help to create and to build that partner network that are going to support the coordinators. So, for example, one of the things that we are doing is a platform, a database of different mix of materials for the Blue schools where the coordinators, the professors, and all the people related to the network can enter and can explore the different programs that have different materials like books, videos, trainings, applications, and also, as you can see here, we also trying to, we are adding in which language these materials are provided. So as a coordinator, I'm also trying a little bit more hard to look for materials in Spanish. So for example, with the previous presentation, it's really, really amazing. So if you want to connect with us and share what you're doing with your materials, we are happy to share this with the coordinators because also in the main topics, we are adding the different related topics with the programs. So one of those can be ocean acidification. So all your work is really welcome to share with the coordinators. So until now, we have a really good communication channel. Globally, there's the Ocean Literacy platform that you can enter, and also there's different information regarding the program. Recently, we did the open call for partners for the Caribbean network. It was really amazing. We have like 300 people that connected, and with 15 presentations of organization providing support that wants to provide support to the network. We also have the Blue Schools Caribbean network. You can scan the code if you want to join and know more about the network. But in general, as I told you, even if we only have 10 months, there's a lot of things happening. So I take the opportunity in this presentation to tell you that all the materials related with the different topics, and as ocean acidification topic that is very important, are welcome to include it in our platforms and in our communication channels to share with the coordinators. And so this is some examples of a lot of things happening in the different countries, a lot of meetings with the ministers of the governments from their countries, with the community, with the kids. And so, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Paula. It's amazing to see everything that's already come together. And that spreadsheet is so organized. I'm sure everyone appreciates just how organized that spreadsheet is. We have got our final speaker now. I will share my screen to introduce him. So we have Paul Gomez Control. Paul is from Relato Coastal in Chile. Paul is a marine biologist and oceanographer who has turned his lifelong passion for the sea into a full-time commitment to science communication, which I think a lot of people here can relate to. He leads outreach at the Copas Coastal Center in Chile and serves as president of the Ocean Literacy Working Group of the Chilean National Oceanographic Committee, and is an active member of Relato Oceano, the Latin American network of marine educators. Looking forward to you closing the session for us, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. Okay, perfect. I belong to Relato. Relato is the Latin American network of marine educators. And we are going to talk about something that I think is really important in this kind of communication, that is to look for storytelling. And storytelling is like the Relato translation for the word in Spanish. Relato in Spanish, storytelling is kind of the English word for that. And I'm going to talk about in representation of Yolanda Sanchez, Celeste Kroger, and et al. And the et al., when I talk about the et al., is this bunch of guys. This is Tim Navarella, Juliana Mancera, that were in some of the pictures that Paola showed us before. But this is what Relato is. It's a lot of people working in marine education, and we have kind of different approaches for doing that. I want to start with this image. The problem with this image is that it's communicate emergency, right? But has something else, these images. They communicate eco-anxiety, and that's something that we don't really want to happen. The thing with the ocean acidification is that this picture can perfectly show an ocean with ocean acidification. So it's really unseen. You don't see emergency here. It's good because you don't see neither eco-anxiety, but it's like, really? It's something happening here? That's the problem with the ocean acidification. And I think that's what we are trying to work with. When we talk about climate change, probably this image is something like a lot of people said, okay, global warming, the ice cap melting, so these individuals are in danger. Something similar happening in the southern hemisphere, right? Those poor penguins are going into troubles. When we are going to talk about ocean acidification, we also need ambassadors. However, the ambassadors we have in the ocean acidifications are not blue whales, are not the polar bear, are not the penguins, are these kind of guys. For example, in Chile, we have the Chilean abalone. The Spanish name is loco. The exact translation for the English will be crazy. So that's what an ambassador for ocean acidification is in Chile. For example, for Antarctica, we also have the sea butterfly, right? That's a very nice individual, but probably it's not too famous neither. When we are trying to have a great ambassador, we need to consider some key dimensions. For example, we are going to communicate, and probably it's very different if we are going to work with children or with adults. Maybe the cartoons or things like that, it's great for children, not necessary for adults. The level of understanding, if we are going to work with kids that has no idea, or with adults that have no contact with science, is going to be very complex to explain something like ocean acidification, chemistry, and all that. And the context is really important to know if we are going to, for example, work with fishermen. If we are going to fishermen, there's a perfect context to work with the Chilean abalone, because it's the way of life of many of them. It's talking with them about the food security that they are providing to the world, right? And something that Francesca said about the misconceptions, something that happened a lot with the ocean acidification is that there's a lot of misconceptions. One of the things that we create with this cartoon, with the kids at least, is the co-creation. We have worked, for example, a book of cartoons talking about the marine science, and every cartoon was created by the school children. So they are going to really connect with the subjects. They are going to connect with the ambassadors. Of course, this was not about ocean acidification, it was about climate change. So the penguins were the main characters, but it's something that you can create very easily with different subjects. You explain a subject, create a character, the great ambassador, the Chilean abalone, or the loco, the crazy man, and you can do a lot. In Relato Oceano, we haven't worked exactly with ocean acidification, but we have worked with marine plankton, and we have worked with the larvae and the adults. We show some life cycles. We have created something about art that it can be done with the cartoon, and we have different workshop steps. We are not going into depth of these steps because it's not about ocean acidifications, but it's important to know that we have to work with the misconceptions, give new information, understanding and organizing this new information according to the misconceptions and use the new information, right? And this is always great to have creativity to explain the context. For example, with this of the local and the food, and many of the students are going to eat that or don't like to eat that, but it's kind of the thing that is happening here. And that's what is important to show to these people. It's important also to work about the eco-anxiety. That I think that's very important. So that's something that with the creativity, with the art, you can get. It's easier for us to do that. At the end of this virtual workshop with the marine plankton, they start working. They create their own arts. They create the different activities, and they work a lot of things, getting that they start to really involve with the matter, with the subjects, and they start to ask more and more about what they are looking for. So that's why I wanted to show. This is Relato, the Red de Educación Latinoamericana para el Océano. We are working in different countries. We have the Oceanoteca, one of the database that Paola showed us before. And what we do is like try to work with the different contexts in the different countries in Latin America, and try to do something virtual normally, but at the end the results are very, very nice. So if you are trying to work with us, if you have any question, please, you can join our network. You can join our website that is in that QR. So that's what I wanted to talk to you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Paul. I love the emphasis on storytelling, and you had excellent ambassadors that we can use to get those points across. So at this time, we're coming to the end of our session. We would like to thank our moderator, Molly, and all of our speakers for a fantastic session. I learned a lot, and I think we're all coming away from this with some excellent resources. Unfortunately, we don't have time for additional questions, but if you'd like to connect with any of our speakers today, we'd encourage you to reach out to the Secretariat, so secretariat@GOA-ON.org, and we'll help you get in touch with this amazing group of OA educators. We'd also like to thank you, our audience, for joining us for OA Week 2025. Don't forget to consult our website on this QR code, and you can register for other OA Week sessions that may be of interest to you. We have 2 more exciting sessions today. First up is the OARS Framework for Action, an introduction to co-designing ocean acidification research for decision-making under the UN Decade of Ocean Science. And then another one later today is going to be the Caribbean Hub session, which we have some connections between that session and this one. So please go to the QR code and sign up for that if those sound of interest to you. If you'd like to stay up to date with the broader GOA-ON community, you can consider signing up as a GOA-ON member by visiting our website or following the QR code under Become a Member. All right. Well, thank you all so much, and we will see you next time.